Welcome to another episode of the Capital Playbook. My name is Charles Williams. I'm the owner and managing member of Pioneer Realty Capital. Today we're going to talk about commercial real estate from a different perspective. We're going to talk about it from the general contractor's point of view and what can be done to make the process a little easier, smoother, and for developers out there, a little less expensive. To assist us in this conversation, we have Mr. Cody Whittle, who's with Andrews Construction. He's going to serve as our subject matter expert and help us to figure out what can be done if you're a real estate developer to make that process smoother and perhaps even save a little bit of money. So thanks for being on our show, Cody.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasant experience when developers want to have conversations with us to see what we can do to improve the process.
There you go. Well, we appreciate that. Well, tell us a little bit about you and your background. How did you get into this construction world?
So I really was born into it. My dad started his own business in 1981, which is the year I was born. And my mom worked, and so really from about the age 3 till I started school, I'd go to work with my dad instead of daycare. You know, start a new business, things get really tight, and so it was a lot cheaper for me to go with him than to go to daycare. So that's what I did. But so I've really always been around it. He was an electrical contractor for residential, primarily did swimming pools. And so I spent summers from age 14 to till I graduated, really in the summers, digging ditches and pulling wire and all the fun stuff. But so, you know, I was quite literally born into it, and just it's been the only thing I've ever known.
Well, that's phenomenal. So you started out born into the trades, if you will.
Right.
Went to college, came out. How did you and you mentioned that you studied ag in college,
right.
But when you came out of college, what did you do?
So I worked for a home builder for about a year, and my best friend went to work for Andrews right out of college, right out of A&M, and said, man, you got to come check us out. And I had about a 5-minute interview with Warren Andrus, and one of the questions he asked me, he said, what happens when you make a mistake? What do you do? And I said, you fix it. And he said, when can you start? And so it was very informal, but man, it was a God thing. Yeah. And there's no doubt about it. It was, the good Lord had my back to hook me up with this company, and it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Wow. Well, kudos to Andrews. I'm going to try to figure out how to get my employees to say that about my company. So you basically went right into Andrews Construction, working for them.
Right.
Now tell us a little bit about Andrews Construction. What is it? Tell us, what do they do? And then, brag on some of the projects that maybe you guys have done in the past.
So we're a general contractor. We've got about 180 employees. We've primarily focused on multifamily and hospitality, senior living, student housing, adaptive reuse. So changing an office building into either a hotel or multifamily or giving it a facelift for that matter. The reason we're in that side of construction is because that's the way our clients took us. In other words, we were given a shot by Greystone almost 30 years ago to do a senior living facility, and from there that got us in the multifamily deal, and it's just kind of snowballed. And I think last year we were the biggest multifamily contractor in the state.
Wow.
And so real small company feel, yet we do some big time things. Our volume last year was about 460 million, and our volume this year should be about 500 million, and then next year's could be great.
Wow.
Even greater than it's been. But we just, wherever our clients take us, that's what we do. We're really relationship based, in that we want to do such a good job on this project. You don't ever want to go anywhere else. And so we don't have a business development team per se or we didn't have one until about 2 years ago, because we didn't need one, because we'd build a job and then we'd wait for the client to bring us another one. And that's still what we rely upon.
Okay, well, very good. Now, I know that I was introduced to Andrews Construction. We had a gentleman who worked in our on our development team that did a project with you guys, and our architect who's designing one of our projects highly recommended you guys. What would you say is the one thing that makes your company unique, that makes it stand out, to the point where you get all of this repeat business, you get these recommendations?
Well, I think I'm going to say relationship a lot of times in this interview, and that's what it's been about. We've relationships with the design team, the relationships with our subcontractors. They're very important to us, and it's not a working relationship; it's a friendship.
Right.
And what we do is challenging, stressful, and high pressure at all times. But when you're working with people you can trust, it makes it a lot easier. It's a team sport, not that we're playing it with each other, not against each other. And so that's what's kind of been the foundation of our company. Another thing is attention to detail. We've got a quality control program that is outstanding, and just these days, the trades or the skilled labor is not what it used to be. And so if you're not almost an expert at all facets of construction, you're going to get burned. And so we've got a lot of good people, or quality control, or the technology we use. We're not perfect, but we try to improve every day, and it's made a difference.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the process. And I'm going to talk about it from the developer's perspective and the traditional approach that we've taken in the past. And then I'd like to get your comments on how things are evolving, especially as it relates to how you do business.
Right.
So, for instance, like as a developer, I'm going to go out, I'm going to identify a piece of land. I'll do my market studies. In the case of multifamily, to see if there's demand for that property, and determine how many units I want to build. We secure the land, we get our entitlements done, and then at some point we decide to design it, right?
Right.
And we get it designed. Architect with their team, MEP and mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, structural engineers. They put the set of plans together. They give me the plans. I look at them. I'm not a construction expert, but I look at the plans. Say they look pretty good to me.
Right.
Right. And then we give the architect go ahead and get us some construction drawings, and then we put it out to bid.
Right.
Okay. And we expect to get exactly what's on those plans.
Right.
How likely does that happen?
It depends on when we get the drawings. Especially in the multifamily world, a lot of times it's multiple general contractors bidding on a DD set, or the set's not done, and so it's a challenge to bid against others when there's so many unknowns.
Right.
And so picking a guy that's way low at that point. Is that smart? Because there's very likely that GC is seeing it different than another is. So that's hard for us because we're usually not low at that point. And so a lot of times it cuts us out of the deal because we do our best to have an all-in package. It'd be like going to shop for a car and then asking, oh, you wanted tires with that?
Right.
And so it's been a challenge for us because of that.
Yeah. So now if you were to improve that process, you're keen for a day scenario, how would you, what changes would you make? What point in your king for a day scenario would you like to be engaged in the project?
We would like to be involved as soon. So if I'm sitting in your shoes, you go, you shop your architects. So pick 3 or 4 architects, tell them where the property is, what your goals are, and make a selection. And then right after that, bring a GC on board. And not only bring the GC on board, but tell the architect and the GC what the number has to be. You know, that's almost speaking foreign language to developers, because they think if they tell you the number, they're not getting the best deal.
Right.
And so, you know, that's the model we're set up on. But right now, how many deals are going?
Yeah.
So how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
Type deal. And it's just a broken system, in my opinion. So, you know, what if your budget's your budget? It costs the building's going to cost what it costs. If your performa is XYZ, let us know what it is, and let's build the best building we can build you for XYZ. If we build it on the budget, everybody wins. So think about it. Right now, the way it works, the GCs get a DD set, and everybody bids. The numbers are all over the place. So selection's made. Then the architect does the next round of drawings. Well, then the budget almost always goes up. So you wasted the architect's time, you wasted the MEP engineer's time, the structural engineer, on and on and on, the GC's time and yours. So the time you could have spent looking for the next deal, you just wasted weeks by them drawing something that you can't afford.
Or might not even be able to build.
Exactly.
Right.
So you could have, instead of spending the money for that next round of drawings, the deal could have been dead right there, and you save all that money. Or better yet, let's draw it to your performa the first time, and let's get this thing off the ground sooner.
So your preferred approach would be, after we engage the architect, you guys would come in and start the value engineering alongside the architect, right, to make that deal fit the budget.
Right, and it's really not value engineering, because this is what we can do to get you the best product to meet your goals.
Right.
So instead of shopping the number when you pick a GC, tell them the number and select approach, select the schedule. How fast can they do it? What's their history? Do they have experience with that product? Do they have experience building in that area? That's what's more important than the number. Again, if we're all designing and doing pre-construction to hit the budget on day one, doesn't everybody win?
Yeah.
The days of having drawings and then you get a surprise number that's way lower than you thought it was going to be, and it working out for everybody, it's not a thing. That's a unicorn.
Right. Yeah, because I could see where that may have been a thing in the past when there were so few general contractors competing with a scarcity of projects. Right. Well, now we're in an environment where we have extremely high demand for housing.
Right.
So there are a lot of projects, and there are a lot of GCs, but there are some GCs that have created a significant track record of designing and creating these. So that traditional approach of, as you mentioned, going through and we call it blood in the water, putting your plans and specs out there and letting everybody compete. It has some inherent problems, as you're saying. Right. But your approach to fixing that is having a good pre-construction process that kind of reconfigures what everybody's worked under before, right, so that you can get closer to your desired result.
Right.
Yeah.
To take that to the next level, and not to get ahead of us, but I've got another thought on it. Soon after that GC is selected, I think the major trades need to be selected. Your structural concrete or your framer, your MEP trades, get them selected. And the argument from developers is going to be, well, how do I know I'm getting the best number? Well, everybody knows what it costs a foot. The GC knows what it costs per foot. They've already told you what they can do it for all in. So again, interview the subcontractors based on experience, their approach. How fast can they do it? Do they have the manpower to do it? My opinion, if I'm in your shoes, let's make this thing as predictable as possible, because as uncertain as times are right now, let's take those uncertainties out. So you get set up on your major trades, then you work together and determine, my opinion, determine who the structural engineer needs to be. It's if this concrete guy is selected for the job, I work great with this structural engineer. Let's pick them, or pick 2 or 3, and then you help select. You and the architect select who that's going to be. Same thing with the MEP trades. Let's. Who do you like working with in the past? What works well, and select them that way, not on price point. But that still allows you to be competitive. But again, it's going back to your approach. Do you get along with their team? Is the architect going to get along with their team? But it's my thinking is let's be productive from day one. And it's right now. I think we're almost doing it as backwards as we can possibly do it. Right. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and I can see how it reduces synergy when you don't have a team. And we're talking major projects. I mean, our projects are 20 million plus. We got one that's going to be 150 million. Right. It would seem impractical to bring together a group of people that maybe have never worked together before. Right. To deliver a $150 million project. Right. I think it reduces the chances of success.
Right. And not only that, sometimes they don't like each other.
Right.
and that's fine. I picked my wife because I like her.
Right.
But there's other people I could have married, but I picked that one.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's not that I'm a bad person. It's not that she's a bad person. It's just it's who we pick. Right. It's the same thing. Relationships. It's who you choose to work with, and choosing the right team is everything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So getting the general contractor and the architect working together early in the process, that kind of, and I can see how that makes sense. Now, when you guys do your contracts, do you do a guaranteed max or do you do a cost plus contract or how does that generally work?
It's typically GMAX deals on our end, but we're open to whatever the lender or developer is comfortable with. We want the contracts to be simple. We're not legal experts. We're construction guys, and we want it to be fair. We don't want it to be one-sided. And but we're open to different approaches on the contract side. But just all we ask is that everybody's fair.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So getting involved early and then picking your trades, and you have a list of trades obviously that you prefer. Right. And do those relationships translate into a better cost for you if you're working with someone where you have that natural synergy, you've had that experience with them before? Is that passed along to the developer?
I think so. One, we're going to typically get better numbers because we pay on time. And so, that's taking an unknown out of the equation. So I'd like to say a lot of times we get better numbers. We typically deliver on time. And so that's another thing, they can plan their overhead and they know what the schedule is from day one and so they can plan accordingly. Yes, knowing who your team is usually helps the numbers improve.
Yeah. Now, one of the primary roles of a general contractor is, as you mentioned, quality control, making sure your trades are, building according to the plans and specifications and monitoring and managing that, managing the schedule, and then just good communication throughout the project. I would imagine you would say that you guys excel in those areas. But my question is this: why do you excel in those areas?
Because you have to. If you don't, there's no way to win. Lines of communication have to be open. They got to be clear. They got to be on time. These jobs get bigger every day, it seems like, and if everybody's not communicating effectively, things get expensive in a hurry. Take your deal that you're planning. If it's 300 units and you make $1,000 mistake in each unit, we're talking big money quickly.
That's a lot of money.
Right. So it's not important. It's everything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good deal. So now you guys have been in business for how many years?
Almost 35, I think 32 in February.
Okay, so you've seen a lot of economic cycles.
Right.
We just came out of one, where a few people died. It was called COVID.
Right.
And then in the aftermath of that, we had supply chain issues, labor cost issues. Some projects may have been delayed. How did that whole COVID experience, how did all that impact you guys?
I wish I could say it's over, but it's not. It still goes on to this day. And I'll circle back to that. But really, we just did our best, which is all anyone could do. It was a challenge to build safely because we got so many people in such a confined space. But we would work multiple shifts. We would have guys that were on the job on certain weeks and off the job other weeks. So we would have like a team A and a team B that was rotating in and out. So we didn't have all the same team in a job office at the same time. So it was a challenge, but I mean, there's always something, right? But
so what about supply chain issues and labor cost issues? How did you guys? Because I would imagine you guys booked jobs at a certain price point, because many of your projects take 24 to 36 months to complete, because you're doing larger projects. Right.
That's a great question, and as soon as a developer gives us the notice to proceed, we're releasing contracts that day. Sometimes we've already written the subcontracts and sent them out and said, this is based on us receiving a notice to proceed. So we buy out the job as close to day one as we can. And that takes the lion's share of the unknowns out. On the subcontractor side, they can buy it out whenever they want to, but they're already locked into a number. And so, let's say in the COVID deal, if we hadn't taken that approach, there's lots of jobs that we couldn't have finished because prices went up, anywhere from 40 to 60%.
Wow.
And a lot of subcontractors didn't survive that. They couldn't.
Right.
And so whether it was in COVID or but even before COVID happened, that's always been important to us because we don't gamble. Construction's enough of a gamble as it is. Hoping that we can get a better number as the job goes on. That's not what we do.
Right. Okay. And so in doing that, you protected your developer as well. Absolutely. Because you didn't have to come back and with the submitting creative change orders. That's what I call them. Right. They need a little more money, so they're going to go create some change order.
Right. So we want to lock in the number. We want to take the guesswork out of it.
So now, are you still dealing with the residual of that?
The biggest thing right now is there's still lead times on some weird things.
Trusses, has that gotten resolved?
Trusses is getting better.
Okay.
The thing, and you need to know this, whether you choose for us to be the GC or not, but the electrical components, switchgear, transformers. We've got a deal in Austin that they initially told us that was in the 36 to 48 week range. They called us the other day and said, by the way, this is going to be now a 70-week deal. Wow. And so what that means is,
you got to have electricity.
Go ahead. What that means from a development standpoint is if you don't have a below grade parking garage or some major earthwork that has to be done that's going to buy you some time after the notice to proceed, but until the time that you need that equipment on site, if you don't have it ordered before the notice to proceed is issued, you're late. You're late before the project started. And so it's something that you need to plan for. We've had to change the way we run jobs because procurement is so tricky. So we've got procurement logs on all our jobs, and it's almost a one-man job until everything's on site to make sure that we're being overly diligent about, man, are you sure you're ordered, and are we sure that the purchase orders have been issued? Because it's like the wild, wild west all over again. And so
Do you see that settling out soon? I mean, we've been dealing with it really since 2020. We're in 2023. I know. Well, I'll ask that on two accounts. One, with regards to labor, is that improving? And two, supply chain. Do you see that getting any better?
I think a lot of the things that have massive lead times. You mentioned trusses earlier. I think that's coming back around. You know, with interest rates rising, new home starts have subsided a bit, and so it's helped with the lumber and the truss market. But the electrical switchgear stuff, I don't have a good explanation. It boggles the mind. I don't know why they can't get caught up. It doesn't make any sense. I wish I knew the answer to that, because we could make a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine they're having labor issues as well, right. Probably throughout their supply chain.
Right. It's got to be labor issues or materials, and I don't know.
But in looking at your crystal ball, looking in the future, do you see a potential solution coming, or that starting to get better?
I think yes. It's got to get better. I don't know that it can get much worse. Right. But yes, sir, I think it's better. And really, I think general contractors have just gotten better at planning. Which, is the supply chain getting better? Maybe no. But we have, as an industry, have gotten better at planning and making sure that things are ordered on time, and sometimes making sure they're ordered before the project even goes.
No, that's pretty good. So now, as a developer, if you are, from your perspective as a general contractor, if you were to give that real estate developer 3 words of advice that they should really think about when they're putting their project together, when they're planning their project, what would that advice be?
Be transparent, and again, it doesn't benefit you by having secrets, especially when it comes to what the budget is, especially when it comes to what your goals are. But be transparent from day one. And again, I'm speaking forward language because it's like, I'm not going to get the best deal if they know what the number is. Well,
kind of counterintuitive, yeah.
Right. I don't know that's the best approach. I think there's value in, especially in high density areas, there's a lot of value in potholing where the utilities go. So, especially downtown areas where there's old utilities that may or may not work. If you go ahead and find those utilities, see where the elevations are. Are they the size that the civil guys think they are? Those are huge unknowns that you can take out from day one. Is there a cost? Absolutely. But is it going to allow you to get skinnier on your contingencies? Yes, because there's where your big dollars, or that's part of where your big dollars lie, is the unknowns. Another thing is there's value in starting the BIM modeling process early.
You said the BIM modeling.
So like on our, especially our high-rise, mid-rise, high-rise stuff, we model all the MEP and fire sprinklers for the building, so we can get it coordinated. But that also goes back into material procurement. And so there's, from the time the first shovel goes in the ground, you could be planning and making sure your risers are in the right spot, and making sure the material that you thought was going to work, it really is going to work. So,
and some would assume that the architect is having this high level coordination and communication with his subcontractors, the MEP and mainly MEP, right, to make sure all that's in place. But that doesn't often happen, does it?
No. And in fact, I think by going back to the model we discussed earlier, if you can get your MEP and fire protection trades involved early, you can model the job and and save money on the MEP engineer side. And what I'm saying there is, we're going to do the model anyway. We're going to do the coordination anyway. Why are you paying somebody else to do something that we're going to do? Not saying we can do it better, but imagine if it's your guys out there installing it. We're getting paid to do this one time. That coordination and making sure it's right, is it more important to you, or is it more important to the MEP engineer?
It's certainly more important to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So is there still a place for MEP engineers? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That we've got to make sure that.
Well, you got to size it right. You got, I mean, from that perspective, in terms of coordinating that, you're right. I mean, that's something the people who are building it should have a say in.
Right.
You know, so that makes perfect sense.
Right. Sizing has to be right. You said it. The sizing has to be right. It has to be engineered, and it's got to work. But as far as the coordination goes, we're going to do it anyway. Just pay for it.
How do you guys afford to do that? Because you're coming in doing a lot of pre-construction, almost working really almost on the pre-development side as well.
Right.
You know, you're doing that prior to being awarded the contract, or you do that once you're awarded? How does that generally work to your benefit economically?
Right now, we don't. Right now, we typically start after the contract's issued. But sometimes, like I said, if you don't have a below-grade parking garage or some massive earthwork, sometimes the BIM model's late. Because that coordination takes time. Think about it. Your risers that start from the bottom, they got to end up at the top. And so you've got to be way down the line with your model, or it's of no benefit.
Right.
And so if you're doing a slab on grade job that's going up vertically quickly, if you're not started on the BIM model, either right when the notice of proceed is issued or preferably before, you're late.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, I tell you what, you've given us a lot of things to think about, and we certainly appreciate you coming, being part of our show. I know from my perspective as a real estate developer, it's great information, and I'm excited about things that we've talked about doing with you guys and pre-modeling out the job and trying to make it as efficient and economically beneficial as possible. But thank you so much, Cody, for being out here. And
yes, sir.
Hopefully we'd love to have you back again on our show as we do more projects.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I sure appreciate it.
All right. So for you individuals who are watching this show, please do me a favor. Be sure and like and share and follow us on our various social media channels. We like bringing quality guests, provide information that you're not going to find in the textbook. This is information that's based on experience and practical knowledge. So if you value that, please be sure and like this show. Charles Williams here, Pioneer Realty Capital. We're here talking all things real estate on the Capital Playbook.